The Cuckoo Sisters, or you might know them as the Frost Sisters if you watched The Gifted, the short-lived Fox series, where the main sister was Esme Frost, who by the time of the end of the second season would turn against the Hellfire Club, and her former leader, Reeva Payge, to join the Mutant Underground, and form a friendship with Polaris. Opposed to her sisters who were completely loyal to Reeva and Hellfire Club, truly believing in the goal that included a nearly complete human genocide. Also, if you're interested, we have a video on Reeva Payge from a little less than 5 months ago. So if you're interested, it's probably appearing in the right or left corner about right now. I forget which one it is. However, despite Esme on The Gifted being the most empathetic Cuckoo Sister or Frost Sister, in the comics she's the very opposite, instead being the most brutal and villainous sister of the bunch. Now if you don't know, the Cuckoo Sisters are clones of Esme Frost, who often see her either as a mom or a big sister, first appearing in 2001's Grant Morrison's new X-Men run. They consist of Sophie, who's the leader, Esme, Phoebe, Mindy, and Celeste. I'm pretty sure I mispronounced the last one, but I don't know how to say it. And this video is about Esme, so it doesn't really matter. Although Mindy Cuckoo has also been called Irma Cuckoo. This is a bit of behind the scenes thing, and that is the character's original name was meant to be Irma, as Grant Morrison wanted all their 5 names to spell out spice. But somehow along the way, her character name will be mentioned as being Mindy, only for it to later be called Irma. And since then, she's kind of gone back and forth. It really depends on who's writing her. That's why on certain things, you're going to see the character's name listed as Mindy, and other places she's going to be called Irma. But yet again, this video is about Esme, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but I did think I should mention it in case someone was confused. Esme, along with the rest of her sisters, would first appear in New X-Men issue 118 from 2001, created by Weapon X as a means of a telepathic group of assassins, who share a bit of a hive mind. Smart plan, to be honest, because the current X-Men team is made up of half of telepaths. Jean, Emma, and Charles. Therefore, making 5 of them to pit against the X-Men is a pretty decent idea. The sisters would eventually turn on their makers, and be inspired by Esme Frost to do the right thing. Esme would end up in a romance with another student at the Mutant Institute, who would be revealed to actually be a spy for the Shi'ar Empire. After which, her sisters would constantly make fun of her, finding it funny that she was so stupid to fall for it, making her feel bullied by those she shared a hive mind with. About something that really did hurt her, because she really did like the guy. The Cuckoo Sisters would also be at the Xavier Riot, where they would attempt to save as many people as they could, although Sophie would use Kick, the X-Gene drug, in order to give them a boost of power, which seems to go around the entire hive mind, as Sophie's the only one that takes it, but they all get a boost of abilities. Something that at first was believed to be Sophie's choice. Haha, get it? But it would unfortunately end with her death from an overdose. Esme, like her sisters, wasn't so convinced by Emma to be a hero, and instead was revealed to be behind her own sister's OD, using her powers to plant the seed of addiction in her mind, and being responsible for Sophie's death. This was her idea of revenge, because Sophie is the leader of the hive mind, therefore technically she was the one causing the mistreatment towards Esme. Therefore, retaliation, Esme had her killed. Or, in a better way to put it, had her kill herself. Which is really brutal. Esme after this would attempt to become the leader of the hive mind, since Sophie was out of the way. However, it became clear that she was too unstable, even to her own sisters, and they knew something was up. Following this, Esme would go completely insane, trying to kill Emma with a special bullet to break through her diamond form. Her sisters would end up distancing themselves from her as her mind became submerged with dark thoughts, and the reveal that she had been behind their own sister's death, resulting in her being kicked out of the Institute, and none of her sisters protested that idea, due to feeling that Esme betrayed them, which she very much did, having killed Sophie. However, Esme felt like she was the one that was betrayed. After all, she only killed Sophie because Sophie was the one making fun of her and belittling her. Therefore, she wanted revenge again. Esme would eventually join Magneto's Brotherhood, who of which she would grow a crush on, feeling a connection with this man based on their mutually horrific minds. But her love was met with nothing in return, as Magneto rejected her, despite her turning on the X-Men for him. She would turn her back on him against his battle with the X-Men, and she wasn't alone. Instead, the majority of the Brotherhood left after his constant belittling to the team. And you know what that means? Esme wants revenge. Again. I feel like each time she wants revenge, it gets less complex. We started where it came from, where she felt belittled by her sisters and made fun of. Then we went to her being felt like she was being rejected by her sisters and betrayed, which I would say is not necessarily the case. And now we're going to, she wants revenge because Magneto rejects her. How dare he not love her back after she turned on the X-Men for him? Even though that technically that's not even what went down. She was kicked out. But no, Magneto is to blame for this. Esme would attempt her revenge by mentally torturing Magneto afterwards. However, she would make a mistake by wearing metal earrings. He would use his powers to have them pierce through her skull and into her brain. Jeez, oh my god. Dying in Emma's arms in issue 150 from 2004. Was your petty revenge really worth it, Esme, in the end? Getting revenge for Magneto rejecting you really costed you your life. I think Esme was a pretty interesting villain when she started off, and a really strong showing of how deadly a telepath can be. Going as far as using her powers to force her sister to OD. However, as time went on, the character kinda dwindled, with no real purpose, and by the end of the character's run, she really just became a lovesick puppy for Magneto. Going as far as to torture him because he rejected her. Of course, you can disagree with me on that. You could love the idea of her having a crush on Magneto. But for me personally, it felt like it came out of nowhere, and it didn't really go anywhere. He could have easily just killed her for no other reason but perhaps wanting to get back at Esme Frost, as a means to mentally torture her back, by killing what is essentially her daughter in front of her. Her sisters would go on to be a trinity of Cuckoo sisters, that being Phoebe, Irma, and Celeste, while in the show it was Esme, Sophie, and Phoebe. Esme since has been brought back a few times, such as Chaos War as being one of the dead characters brought back, but she would be dead again before the event was even over. But she was brought back permanently in the Krakoa era, where she would start a romance with Kid Cable and become more like the rest of her sisters, falling in line to join the Hive Mind again. Sophie was also back at this point. Now, while this is very out of character for Esme, I do think that it's a nice touch of the character's back, due to the fact that Emma has gone through a pretty rough few years. So to give her back her daughters, that being Esme and Sophie, I do think that was a nice touch and a nice moment for the characters. Even if it feels very out of character for Esme, and even out of character her relationship with Kid Cable, which personally, I don't really like. Especially since Kid Cable's dad had a thing with Esme's mom. Maybe it's just me, but something there's a little weird. Esme has a pretty tragic story. I found her to be a pretty deadly foe who I think could have become a big X-Men villain, although the character is most known for her role in The Gifted, where, like said, she's the complete opposite, still being the main focus of the sisters like the new X-Men comics, although now being depicted as the kindest sister opposed to being the meanest one. I find it funny that I describe Esme from the comics as mean, opposed to other words like villainous, evil, but no, mean. She's mean. She's a meanie fofini. Yeah, I know, I'm cringe. Esme from The Gifted is still a very strong character in her own right. Since she is a twist from the original character, she still very much is an outlier of her sisters, but for a different reason now, that being because she's an actual good person opposed to her sisters who are villains. Season 2, Episode 6 does a great job showing the Frost sisters' origin, and establishing Esme is becoming a different person than their sisters, growing outside their hive mind with subtle changes, such as how she sleeps in a different position, as well as dresses differently. And, most importantly, starting a kindred friendship with Polaris and her baby, which shows that Esme has humanity. She isn't a monster. In fact, she's not even a bad person, or at the very least, not anymore. She did start as a villain in Season 1, but she would slowly grow into a different person and become more of a hero, eventually joining the Mutant Underground, and if the show had gone in Season 3, she'd have likely been a main part of it. Her redemption feels very fleshed out, and it really fits with the show and the character that they were building. Skylar Samuels, who plays the character, and her sisters, does a great job showing the differences between Esme and Sophie/Phoebe. Overall, I think that both versions of the character have potential, but currently, Esme is being treated like the rest of her sisters, which, in my opinion, isn't the character. Yes, she's a completely different person in the comics and the show, but in both versions she's an outlier, unique to her sisters, which is a probably important part to the character, if that is the core of the character. Therefore, to kind of just go back on that feels a little strange. However, like I said, it still was nice to give Emma her daughter back, or daughters, including Sophie. I just think that there's something there that can be done with the character that isn't just making her simply like the rest of the Cuckoo sisters. But, yet again, that is just my own personal opinion. You can disagree with that and think the character deserves to be happy. As is. Although, I will admit, I do prefer the gifted version Esme over the comic version, as the character just feels more fleshed out on the show opposed to the character in the comics. Although, yet again, opinions vary. And that's it. What are your thoughts on Esme as a character? Do you like her as a villain? Do you like her as a hero? Do you just not like her? Which, to be fair, I could see why. But for me, I think the character just bubbles with potential. Or maybe I'm crazy. I probably am. I have no idea where the character could go from here, to be honest. And that's it. Like always, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!